actually, quite quickly, once you move to that way of working, you start to see bits of work that, we all have bits of our work that we do that maybe isn't particularly contributing toward the wider goal of your organization. And quite quickly, companies seem to work more effectively, more efficiently. And also that's backed up by the fact that workers are better rested. They've had that time to themselves, they've got a better work-life balance. So then they're performing more efficiently and effectively in their job. There were 60 companies that took part, 60 UK companies from a real wide variety of sectors of the economy, kind of manufacturing, retail, financial sector, all sorts of sectors of the economy, which I think was the most exciting part of it. That across all those sectors, the pilot has shown that the 4-day week with no loss of pay really works. These results are a major breakthrough moment for a 4-day working week. We've seen well-being massively increase for all the workers involved. But on the other side, we've seen business productivity and performance maintained. And for that reason, almost every company that took part has decided to stick with the 4-day week at the end of the trial.
I suppose to some extent it's self-sustaining. If you had a company which you just didn't think would work, you probably wouldn't have applied for it.
Well, I don't know. I think all the companies that started it went into it quite open-minded. It was like, let's see what happens. There was no commitment at that point to stick with it. They were very aware they could have gone back on this at the end of it. But it has been a win-win for both workers and employers, with well-being going up, productivity maintained.
And are there rules that everyone had to follow in terms of how the 4-day rather than 5-day week works, or was it left to different businesses or even different staff to work out how they made it effective?
Yeah. So the crucial kind of uniting factor was that it was kind of 80% of the hours while maintaining 100% pay. So some of those companies did it quite differently to others. The most simple way was just to kind of shut operations for a day, so everyone's kind of off work for the same day. But for many companies that wasn't possible. So it's about kind of rotating days off to ensure the 5-day coverage, because we've got to recognize that companies moving to a 4-day week today are moving to a 4-day week in which a society which is still dominated by the 5-day week, sadly, which we would argue is a very outdated model of work now.
And how does it work? Because if you're, I don't know, if you've got a job where you sort of clock in and clock out, you're working on a till in a supermarket, you go and do your hours and then you leave. If you're in a job where maybe more of an office job, you take your work home, you end up working extra hours at evenings and in weekends. How, so to try and work out the hours you actually work, what is the 100% you're trying to cut down to 80%? Did you have to be quite strict about that?
Yeah, well, the companies tried different ways of doing it. I mean, we had a fish and chip shop that took part, that did early start times for half the staff, and then ending early, and then later start times and ending later. There's lots of different ways of doing it. I think the 4-day week needs to be as flexible as possible to allow businesses to decide how it would work for them. But it's not going to be. This isn't going to be a change that happens overnight for everyone. There's going to have to be a transition to get there. But absolutely, we think that the vast majority of the economy could move to a 4-day working week by the end of this decade.
Obviously, the way it works, and it might go somewhere to tackling the productivity puzzle of why productivity is so low in the UK. But it's obviously because you want people to be working harder during those 4 days. And yet at the same time, you've got a 65% reduction in the number of sick days. The number of people saying that they were suffering from burnout was down. 71% of people said they had lower levels of burnout. How is that possible if you're working harder for the 4 days and yet people are less likely to be ill and less likely to be burnt out?
But it's about working smarter rather than working harder. So it's looking at your kind of business output. What do you want to achieve at the end of your working week? What is your effective output? And being really strategic about that. The businesses really spent a couple of months really planning for that. And actually, quite quickly, once you move to that way of working, you start to see bits of work that, we all have bits of our work that we do that maybe isn't particularly contributing toward the wider goal of your organization. And quite quickly, companies seem to work more effectively, more efficiently. And also that's backed up by the fact that workers are better rested. They've had that time to themselves, they've got a better work-life balance. So then they're performing more efficiently and effectively in their job.
Okay, Joe, stay there because I want to bring in some of the people who took part in the trial. Claire Daniels is Chief Executive at Trio Media, which is a marketing agency in Leeds. Hi, Claire.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm very good. So explain what you did. Introduce. How many staff have you got? How did you make it work with a 4-day working week?
Yes. Well, I mean, we've now got 13, but we had 9 people when we started on the trial. And for me, it was just a case of communication, taking people along on the journey with us. It was really important, being in the service industry, that we stayed open 5 days. So we split the team in 2 and did half working Monday to Thursday and the other half working Tuesday to Friday, because it was also really important we had some core days when everyone was working. And, you know, going to the point you just mentioned about how do people get, you know, better work-life balance when they should be more burnt out, squeezing 4 days in. And, you know, we found that people that traditionally used to overwork and do overtime, even in 5 days, actually, when we gave them the tools and how to manage their time better, were able to finish on time when we went down to 4. And that was no reduction in workload, but just given new tools and a new way of working in being able to manage what they need to do.
Is that a slight admission that in the sort of the traditional idea of a 5-day working week, particularly in an office where you know what you've achieved that day might vary to varied degrees, that there's a lot of slack? That what you're saying that actually, if you everyone in a business has a bit of concerted effort, you can just get more done, and you'll turn out that you're doing a whole load of stuff. You might be having more meetings because you've confused the idea of having meetings with actually achieving something. And if you just cut all that out because you have to. Actually, there's quite a lot of slack in everyone's working day.
Yeah, correct. So it wasn't so much that we found time was being wasted on people not working, but it is the work they're doing the most efficient and best for business. So if we can take someone out of a meeting because it's not the best value and use of their time being in the meeting, then let's do that and have them focusing on the core responsibilities of their role. So it was all about making those slight changes to make it work for us. And it's that whole mindset shift of you're not cramming 5 days work into 4, because there's probably around 20% of your time that you're not being as productive or working on that core role as you could be. So those are the changes you need to make it succeed.
When you said you'd gone from 9 to 13 staff, had you had to take on those extra staff to plug gaps?
We've had to take on those extra staff because we've had a 47% revenue increase whilst on the trial, and our business has gone through the roof because everyone's really happy. So yes, we've needed the extra staff to cope with the demand.
Very good. Claire, stay there. I want to bring some other. Paul Oliver is Chief Operating Officer at Citizens Advice in Gateshead. Hi, Paul.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Very good. Explain what you did then at Citizens Advice.
Yeah, so we have over 200 staff working at Citizens Advice Gateshead. So it was quite a challenge logistically for us to onboard into 4-day week. So we started in the summer of last year, and we worked over a phased implementation period over about 12 weeks, just to make sure that we were managing our business continuity and also working in a spirit of shared learning where people who went earlier were able to pass on that learning and that understanding to the teams who came later on.
And did you have any problems?
Well, actually, the benefits and the effects started coming through pretty much immediately, where we saw that staff, because they were better rested, they were taking ownership for their work, they were becoming much more productive, and we saw some initial upsides pretty much straight away. I think where we had some challenges was around our contact center operations, which is our telephone-based advice that we give. We found that that was very highly monitored to start with, and we are less in control of how we can frame a working day simply because you have to answer the phone when it rings, and we've got average call handling times that need to be met. So there were some challenges there, but overall, across the business, we saw lots of upside and lots of benefits.
And did you need more staff? Because if you've got, I don't know, if you've got every day, say 10 Citizens Advice advisors dealing with people, if they're then only there 4 days rather than 5, are you providing less of a service, or are you spreading people out more? How do you make it work? Because if you're, I don't know, if you're running a shop or something, you need X number of people there 5 days a week, and so if you haven't, then you're going to need more people, aren't you?
So we looked at our working day, and we asked all of the teams, who all operate very differently, to manage their service and to manage their business continuity. And that looks at how we frame the working day. And one of the the things that we've been looking at and using the 4-day week as a tool to leverage this is around breaking out of the 9-to-5 model, because our clients fall into crisis 24/7, and often some of our services are only accessible between 9 to 5. So some of what we've been doing as part of the trial is opening earlier and staying open later. And we're even looking at piloting a weekend service now as a result from this. And a lot of this is actually around looking at your client demand. And for most of the cases, we were having bottlenecks where we just didn't have enough staff and resource to answer telephones or see people at certain times of the week. So say, for example, on a Monday morning or late on a Friday afternoon. So if you analyze your client behavior and adjust your services accordingly, you can provide a better service to your clients whilst also the staff benefits that come with 4-day week as well.
Is it slightly, Paul? We'll come on to Dawn, who's on the line as well, and just say, is all of this actually just slightly the process of applying for this was just a kick up the bum for the organisation, for you to just think, could we be working smarter? Are there things we could do to improve our service and make life slightly better for our staff? And you could have achieved quite a lot of that without going down to the 4-day week.
Possibly, but I think the fact that this is actually tethered to organizational efficiency and optimal performance, there's a reward in there of time back for staff who commit into this. And that's a relationship that is always part of the 4-day week, and one that we very much hope to continue, is that staff will always be invested in these marginal gains of improving performance. And, this is very much a journey for us where we've been on this since the summer last year. And there's still so much that we can go at in terms of operational efficiency that will gradually get better and better the more that we go along this road.
Okay, let's bring in Dawn then. Dawn is Dawn Abernethy. Abernethy, thank you. Is the director of AKA Case Management. Describe what you do, Dawn, and then what I know you're based in Nottingham. How you found this process of the 4-day week.
We provide case management services for people with traumatic injuries, largely brain injuries and spinal cord injuries. We've always had a wellbeing focus, and we wanted to do something innovative in this area. So when the 4-day week came up, we absolutely jumped at the opportunity to take part in it. Our staff have reported that they feel happy, more valued, rested, and feedback from our clients pre and post trial has been that our services have actually improved.
And how is that possible when you've still got presumably the same number of people to look after?
We have operated a similar model to Claire, where our staff take either a Friday or a Monday. So our services are covered 5 days a week. We feel that if we look after our staff, they're going to be able to care for our clients better. If we look after ourselves, we can look after others. And we think that taking part in the 4-day week has shown that.
Has done that, yeah. I suppose I should ask you all the million-dollar question. I'll come to you all. Dawn, first of all, are you going, now the trial has come to an end, all these statistics are very good, it's all worked very well, are you going to stick with it?
We are. We're pleased to say that we have adopted it permanently, yes.
Oh, that's very good. So that's a big tick there. Paul at Citizens Advice in Gateshead, are you sticking with the 4-day week?
So because we onboarded later into the trial and some of our teams didn't onboard until September, we're still analysing the data. So the initial data is looking very positive for us. We're monitoring things like staff retention and sickness levels. And the journey isn't finished for us yet, that we need to just get that final bit of data. So we'll be taking a decision later on in the summer.
Same question to you then, Claire. Are you going to stick with it?
Yeah, so we've continued. I am going to wait till we get to a year to make a permanent decision on it, because I felt like we needed longer as a business. But right now we are still doing the 4-day week. Very
good. Really good to speak to you, Dawn, Paul and Claire. Thanks for joining us. Joe, you're still on the line. While we've been talking, we've had loads of messages coming in. Some people pointing out there's quite a lot of management jargon in this, but it's obviously real journeys and all of that. But it's a real world thing. One question which actually lots of people have been asking. Clearly there are some jobs this isn't suited to, aren't there? Somebody says, what happens if teachers want a 4-day week? Are parents meant to disrupt their working life to look after kids at home? Where's the productivity gain in that, says Alistair in Coulston. Are there some jobs or sectors where this just won't work, Joe?
There's definitely sectors where it's going to be slightly more complex to implement. But, we take teaching, for example. I mean, that's a sector where the workers are completely burnt out, stressed, overworked. It is a sector where a 4-day week would really benefit the staff. And of course, as I said before, I think, we are still dominated by this 9 to 5, 5-day working weeks. That makes things harder. But if we're talking about a society-wide transition to a 4-day working week, by end of this decade, then of course that's got to include teachers. Of course, that's got to include everyone. The 4-day working week is about a better work-life balance for everyone, and so it should be implemented on that basis.
So in an ideal world, in 10 years' time, we would be a 4-day society. So schools would only be open Monday to Thursday, but that's fine because jobs are only Monday to Thursday.
Exactly. That is the long-term vision. It's going to take some time to get there. It took about a decade to shift from a 6-day working week to a 5-day working week 100 years ago. But, we think it can be done. And also, just one extra point, if you think about automation, new technology still to come, there is a diminishing amount of work available anyway. So we are going to have to be strategic about sharing work more equally across the economy. And that's where shorter working week comes in.
And you're in Parliament today talking about this, trying to persuade, ministers, MPs? Where does it go next?
Yeah, so the Labour MP Peter Dowd is chairing a session today. We've got a real mix of cross-party MPs coming to find out more. We're hoping, that firstly, we're hoping that, more and more companies begin to roll this out, across the country. Secondly, we do think there is a role for politicians. There's policies that can be implemented to enable this transition from trials in the public sector, giving workers the right to, through flexible working legislation, to at least have the right to request a 4-day working week. And there's also probably a role for trade unions as well in kind of organising with workers to demand a 4-day week in their workplaces. So there's lots that can be done, and it's going to take some time to get there.